Hello friends, welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm compiling complete knowledge on Salesforce triggers, including interview questions, scenarios, and approach to write triggers. So let's go and get started. A trigger is an Apex code that executes before or after the following types of operation: insert, update, delete, merge, upsert, and undelete. What are different types of triggers? Before triggers and after triggers. Before triggers are used to update or validate records values before they are saved to the database. After triggers are used to access field values that are set by the system, such as record ID, last modified date field, and to effect changes in other records, such as logging into an audit table or firing an asynchronous event with a queue. The records that fires the after triggers are read only. How to define a trigger? To define a trigger, use the following syntax: trigger, trigger name, on, object name. So trigger events and your code block. So where trigger events can be a comma separated list of one or more of the following events. So that includes before insert, before update, before delete, after insert, after update, after delete, and after undelete. What are bulk triggers? All triggers are bulk triggers by default and can process multiple records at a time. So you should always plan on processing more than one record at a time. Bulk records can handle both single record updates and bulk operation like data import, Lightning Platform bulk API calls, mass actions such as record owner changes and deletes, recursive apex methods, and triggers that invoke bulk DML statements. What are trigger context variables? Trigger context variables allow developers to access runtime context. These variables are contained in the system.trigger class. So is executing returns true if the current context for the Apex code is trigger, not a Visual Force page, web service, or an execute anonymous API call. Is insert returns true if the trigger was fired due to an insert operation from the Salesforce user interface, Apex, or the API. Is update returns true if the trigger was fired due to an update operation from the Salesforce user interface, Apex, or the API. Is delete returns true if the trigger was fired due to delete operation from the Salesforce user interface, Apex, or the API. Is before returns true if the trigger was fired before any record was saved. Is after returns true if the trigger was fired after any record was saved to the database. Is undelete returns true if the trigger was fired after record is recovered from the recycle bin. This recovery can occur after undelete operation from the Salesforce user interface, Apex, or the API. So new returns a new version of the S-object records. The S-object list is only available in insert, update, and delete triggers, and the records can only be modified in before triggers. New map, a map of IDs to the new version of the S-object records. The map is only available in before update, after insert, after update, and after undelete operations. Old returns a list of old version of S-object. This S-object list only available in update and delete triggers. Old map, a map of IDs to the old version of S-object records. This map is only available in update and delete triggers. Operation type returns an enum of the type system.trigger operation corresponding to the current operation. So possible values for the system.trigger operation enum are before insert, before update, before delete, after insert, after update, after delete, and after undelete. So basically, this operation type is useful when we are separating the logic from the trigger to the trigger handler class, and we can use along with the total number of records in a trigger invocation, both old and new. Can you explain what recursion is? Recursion is a process where a function calls itself repeatedly until a certain condition is met. In the context of a Salesforce trigger, recursion can occur when a trigger fires and updates a record, which then causes the trigger to fire again. Since the record has been updated, this can happen multiple times and eventually lead to an error if not handled properly. How to prevent recursive updates from a trigger? So we can create a public static boolean variables in public class where default value is true. Within the trigger class, within the trigger, check static variable is true before code execution. Once trigger code execution is completed, we can set the static variables to false. This way, trigger code will always execute once. What are trigger best practices? So, there are some trigger best practices. So, I have included few. One trigger per object. So, we can always follow this practice because Salesforce does not guarantee the order of execution of triggers. So we can write one trigger per object. Second, logicless trigger. If you write method in your triggers, those cannot be exposed for test purposes. You also cannot expose logic to be reused anywhere else in your org. And third, context specific handler methods. Four, bulkify your code. Bulkifying Apex code refers to the concept of making sure that code properly handles more than one record at a time. Number five, avoid SQL queries or DML statement inside for loop. So Apex has enforced governor limits. So maximum 100 SQL queries are allowed. If it is going beyond 100 SQL queries, then will land up into runtime exception. Trigger invokes more than 100 account records. So governor limit will throw a runtime exception. So in order to avoid this, uh, we don't write SQL queries and DML statement inside the for loop. Avoid hard coding IDs. So if we are hard coding IDs, so IDs are environment specific, and when you push your code to the different environment, so IDs will not work, and you have to update the ID manually. So that is not a good approach. So avoid using hard code IDs in your trigger. Best practices, write one trigger for each one. So here I have demonstrated how you can write your trigger, and you can separate the logic in trigger handler class. So this trigger is I have written on account object, and account trigger on account. So account trigger is the trigger name, and you can list all your event operations. So I have listed all: before insert, before update, after insert, after update. So before delete, after delete, and undelete. So you can separate your logic with if else condition. So if trigger is before insert, so you can call separate method. Similarly for before update, and after insert, after update. So I have included just for before insert. So same way you can add your methods and logic for other conditions as well. So in before insert, it's calling account trigger handler and referring the update rating method there, and passing trigger dot new values. So here is a trigger handler class where we have declared public static method whose name is update rating, and return type is void. So public static void update rating and accepting list of account and ACC list. So ACC list will have trigger dot new records. So we now we are iterating ACC list and storing into the account variable ACC. If ACC industry equal to information technology, would like to update the rating as hot. This will update the rating as hot if user is have selected information technology as industry. There is no need to write DML operation before insert operation. Trigger scenarios in Salesforce. So scenario number one. So write a trigger on account when a new account is created or inserted. Would like to flag account as large, medium, and small business account based on the number of employee field. So what would like to do if number of employee is greater than 1,000, you want to flag the account as large. If number of employee is greater than equal to 500 and less than 1000, then we want to flag the account as medium, and if it is less than 500, we want to flag the account as small. So in order to write a trigger, we always follow three steps. In first step, we identify the object in which the trigger has to be written. So in our case, object is account. Step two, we have to identify the trigger event and operation on which you want to take the action or want to automate the process. So in our case, it is before insert event, and third is step 3 is logic. So in this scenario, we have identified trigger event will be before insert. So first understand what happens during before insert event. So system checks or evaluates the data what user enters through UI or API before inserting data into the database. So trigger class provides several trigger context variables that holds the data at runtime. In before insert event, we can use trigger.new or trigger.newMap. So trigger.new returns a list of new version of SObject record. This SObject list is only available in insert, update, and undelete triggers, and the records can only be modified in before triggers. I'm just writing the logic here. So for account ACC in trigger.new, ACC is the variable name of the account. If ACC dot number of employees if not equal to null, not null, and ACC number of employees is greater than 1000, then you want to flag that account as large business customer. So we have a custom field on account ACC. We are referring ACC dot flag underscore C equals to large business customer. So similarly, we can write logic for other condition as well. So during before insert event, no need for DML statement. Insert operation will be performed by the user or through API. Scenario 2. While user creating an account, if annual revenue provided by user is less than 1000, then we then write a logic to throw an error to user. So again, follow three steps. Identify object. So it has to be account, and step 2, event, identify event and operation, so it has to be before insert, and step 3 is logic. As I said, like in before insert, trigger dot new will be available, and it has the new version of s object record what the user is entering. So we are iterating trigger dot new, means we are iterating the new version of as a record which user has entered. And if ACC dot annual revenue not equal to null and ACC dot annual revenue less than 1000, then would like to show the error to the user. So there is a method AC add error, so we can refer the method ACC dot add error, and annual revenue cannot be less than 1000. So any message you can display like this. Scenario 3, when user created an account, write a logic to create contact with same name and associate account and contact. So again, follow three steps: identify object, event and operation, and logic. So in our case, account is the object, and this is after insert, and logic. So what we would like to do, we would like to create a contact with the same name and associate account with the contact. So uh, we are creating empty list of contact first. Uh, so list of contact, con list is a variable name, new list of contact, and we are iterating trigger dot new and holding into the variable ACC. And under that, we are creating a new context and c dot account ID equals to, now we are associating uh, that contact account ID with the account ID ACC ID, and also the C dot last name should be ACC name, and adding this record into the list con list dot add, and passing the variable contact variable C, and then we have to insert the con list. So uh, That's what we have to do. So our scenario is completed when uh, we had to write a trigger. We need to try logic to create a contact with the same name and associate contact and uh, contact. So we are done with our code. So let's move on to the next slide. So thumb rule, if we need to update and pre-populate any fields on the same record or to fire an error validating the record, then go with the before event, or any other condition, go with the after. Scenario 4, when user updates account record, if user changes account name, throw an error, account name once created cannot be modified. Three steps, and remember three steps: identify object, in our case account object, event operation is before update, and third is logic. So before update, we would like to check whether the account name is being changed by the user or not. So how to do that? For account, acc in trigger.new account. So in order to get the old value, there is a method trigger.oldMap dot get acc id. So this will give us old value into the acc old. So if acc dot name not equal to acc old name, acc old dot name, then if it is not equal, then we have to show error. That means the new name has been to new name. So by add error method, so you cannot modify the account name. So any message that you want to like to display to the user, so we can.
Scenario 5. If billing address on user account record is changed, update all its child contacts mail address field same as account billing address. So in order to write triggers, we have to follow three steps. Step 1, identify object. Step 2, event operation. And step 3, logic. So in our case, account is the object on which we'll be writing trigger, and event operation is going to be after update. And for logic, first thing first, we need account ID on which so we need account ID which has old values. So in order to get the old values, we have a method in trigger class trigger.oldmap.get. So we'll be passing acc new.id. So acc new is the variable name, and we are iterating trigger.new values that user is entering here. So the next step is, if the old values and new values do not match, means the result is yes, then we'll be adding these id account id into the set of ids. So the set of ids we have declared above, set id acc id equals to new set id. So we'll be adding into this set. So we'll have all the account ids on which the billing address has been changed. So now we have to query account records and associated contacts using parent-child relationship query by using this binding variable ACC-ID. So what we are doing, select ID, name, billing street, billing state, and also this is a parent-child relationship. So we are querying uh, subquery also on the contact. So select ID, last name from contact. So contacts is the relationship name, the contact object for the account. So from account where ID in ACC ID. So this we will get from this query, we will get all the accounts and the related contacts on which billing address has been changed. So in the next statement, we are creating a list of contact, empty list of contacts whose variable name is con list. And then we are iterating this acc related con. So acc related con is the accounts with the related contacts, and uh, and storing into the acc here. And list of contact acc con. So what we are doing, so we are the related contact through acc dot contacts. So acc dot contacts will get all the related contacts and storing into this con variable. So now will have all the related context within this for loop. So what we have to do, we have to call the field name by using the dot operator. Con dot billing street equals to ACC billing street, and similarly con dot billing city equals to ACC billing city, and con dot billing street equals to ACC billing street. This trigger, I hope you like the content of this video. If you want to see more scenarios, you can just post me your question, and I'll be happy to help you out with my next videos. uh, Keep watching my videos. Thank you.